Today we're in a basement, not just any basement, we're in a legendary basement full of motorcycles and snowmobile memorabilia because we're talking to multi-champion Yvon Duhamel. He's raced Kawasaki motorcycles and he's a Skidoo racing legend, and we're in his basement. Yvon, I gotta ask you, first of all, what was it like racing in '69 to the early '70s on those big banked oval snow tracks?
Well, myself, I like it because I was doing good, and those big banking, I was about the only one to use it. So it was less rough, and it was I could speed and do more speed because it was less bumpy.
You're a champion in speed runs. You were the fastest guy in a straightaway. You won the I-500 in cross country, and you won Eagle River. What was it like to win in all those areas of snowmobile racing for Skidoo?
Well, it was very, very happy and very proud of winning all those races. Especially, I think I'm the only one who won so many races and so many important races. Snowmobile, I was using the bank, in the very high bank. I was the first guy to do that, I believe, and I was making good time and I was winning a race doing that.
We're in your house. You've got all kinds of snowmobile jackets. You've got all your old helmets. You've also got the only 1974 Skidoo Snow Pro sled in your garage. What was unique about that sled that you helped design?
Well, yes, I did. The year before, I did some of my idea they use, and then finally they decide to use, like, say, 60%.
You got a lot of weight knocked off that sled. You had them drilling, you had them putting titanium, you had them moving fuel tank, you had them change the motorcycle grip. You really made that your sled.
Yeah, well, even with the old sled in the 70s, 72, 5, I always wanted to be comfortable. If you want to go fast, you need to be sitting in the right place, having the right handlebar, and having the right seat, and having the right power also, naturally.
I have to say thank you. It's been a real pleasure being in Yvon's basement. He's let us go through all his motorcycle memorabilia, his incredible snowmobile memorabilia, showed us his '74 Snow Pro. It's been a really great afternoon spending the time here with Yvon in his basement. Yvon Duhamel, thank you very much for a great afternoon, my friend.
Thank you, and don't forget to send me my magazine.
Visiting with Yvon Duhamel was an amazing experience and an incredible history lesson, and that history lesson continues as I move on to a place I call the Polaris Barn. Inside this barn, there are parts for every type of model that Polaris made. Hoods, bumpers, steering columns, suspension pieces, and more can be found in rows and in piles. You name a model, and the hood for that sled is here, somewhere. For Polaris vintage fans, this is like sacred ground. I find it somehow necessary to wear my vintage Polaris coat when I tour this place. In the upper level, I am in awe. Where do I begin? Row upon row of classic Polaris history is here. Under a cloth layer or layer of dust are classic sleds that could be fueled up and taken for a ride. I remember so many of these models from my younger years, what I would have given to have a TX or a TXL in my garage. Polaris made some fantastic performance sleds in the 70s, but they also made great family sleds like the Cobra and the Colt, and they are all here. Among the many complete sleds are incomplete sleds and part sleds too. A vintage Polaris fan could do a project build here by picking out a chassis, a hood, an engine, a couple Mikuni carbs, and a Polaris clutch. Polaris developed many innovations over the years, and they can be found in this location. The engines, clutches, and suspensions that they built are all found under this steel roof. I'm a huge fan of free air and liquid-cooled sleds of the 70s, and in this barn, time is well documented. The styling of the sleds is reflective of the simplicity in those years. Disconnect a fuel line and 4 bolts, and the engine could be removed in less than 15 minutes. The hoods were very open to allow airflow over the large cooling fins of the freer engines. A dual bulb headlight system was popular back then, but with the low wattage output of the time, there was not a lot of brightness to gain. A few steps away from the 70s and I find myself looking over the transformation that seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. Liquid cooling created more horsepower, and the jump in performance led to the development of consumer independent front suspensions. The term IFS became commonplace on consumer sleds, and that was the backbone of the success of the Polaris Indies. Launched around 1980, this nameplate was the plateau that other OEMs chased for many years. With a few different engine combinations and a few design changes, the Indy kept Polaris out front for many years. The Polaris Barn provides an incredible journey through time. All snowmobilers can appreciate the history lesson and the trip back in time that this hidden location offers. Ironically, for vintage enthusiasts like me, it is a place that only a few can view, for this is, after all, a secret location.